people pull it down to just sex, but that's not what it is. So that's why we are trying to see that we understand what we are talking about and where we are coming from and what it all means. So there are many definitions. People have all kinds of things because it's a wide topic and it pulls in very many things. So as you can see there, the core part of being human is sexuality. Sexuality is the core part of being human because it involves everything in the individual. The identity, who you are, the emotions that you portray, the desires that come up, the relationships that you have, the value system that you hold, the belief and attitudes. So it's like everything. And I liked what someone said earlier today when we were meeting with them, that is like the inner man. I think maybe John can explain a little more. It's like the invisible thing that is inside there, and how you treat it and how you deal with it, how you grow up, how it all comes together has a lot to being to eventually ending up to who you are, the core part of you, because what is in there comes out eventually. And then it says the other one is the condition of being characterized and distinguished by sex. That is, I am male or female. However, as I said, it involves much more than genitals, because right now we are getting all this confusion of, yes, you have the genitals of male, but now you're behaving like a female. You have the genitals of a woman, but you're dressed like. So people are confusing these things, but it's really the characteristics of being distinguished as male or female.
Oh.
Then it develops with what we call physical growth, through our gender specific stages. You are a newborn, you then become a toddler. So everything around you. So it involves the hormones, the things that make you grow. You become a pre-adolescent, an adolescent, a post-adolescent, an adult, simply because of sexuality. And then it affects everything, as I already said, emotional, the intellectual, and your social aspects of life. So basically, in the end, it helps, it determines how you think, how you reason, how you react, how you dress, and how you behave.
And she was asking me to say something maybe just before I go, because where we were, it was a fellowship and we're trying to share. And someone shared with us about the invisible person that we are, that even now as we speak to you, some of you may be thinking, oh, I have a girlfriend and so on. That's not what we are talking about, but your mind goes elsewhere. So there is a sense in which there is that invisible person who is, I guess we would say, subterranean, not immediately visible, not touchable, and so on, but who is always existing there. Now, as we go on, let us also recognize the constitution of an individual in relation to sexual attitudes. All these have to do with the sexuality and your behavior. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, it's when I got married and started living in the same house with my wife that I started realizing the way she thinks is not the way my male friends have been thinking or the way she does things and so on and so forth. She brought in things like, matching clothes. And I said, matching clothes? What's that for? So things like those. But also the concern or interest in sexual activity. That also becomes quite prominent. The ability to be close to someone. So you just get attracted and you see that this is all part of your sexuality, feeling some kind of sexual attraction to others. At some stage, you start experiencing that kind of thing. And it's perfectly normal for all children of all ages to have sexual thoughts and feelings. So let us not think that when someone starts looking at a woman or a man and so forth, and there is attraction, that they have become abnormal. No, no, no. That's very normal. Okay, darling.
Yes, and the normality of it, although I don't know why you've turned your camera off. We want to see your face. But
Okay.
yeah, so it is normal. We are normalizing this thing because some people feel like when they're attracted to someone who is, along the way, they're like, wow, what have I done? There's something wrong with me. But,
Mm,
we all have that ability to be close to someone. We have
mm,
that attraction. We have a sexual attraction to others. It is possible, and we just don't let it go. You don't let it out and let it fly like you have no control over it. But we have to know that it is normal. It starts very early in life and keeps growing, just like we said, things keep growing with your
mm.
growth. When you are 2 year old, I remember, I don't know whether it was one of our grandsons who came back and said he really is attracted to some girl. This was about 4. They're like, what? Yes, he had that attraction. And he was young enough to be able to express it. Yeah. But some people are squished, they can't say it, they can't do anything. And it makes it difficult to know what to do about that.
Right. Okay. And yeah, there we do have Ecclesiastes, those verses, they say, rejoice, O young man, let your heart cheer you, walk in the ways of your heart. And our sexuality is one of those things where we enjoy much pleasure. That I'm a man, that I'm a woman. I remember when I was in senior 3, our teacher asking the boys and girls, how many of you would want to be girls? How many of you would you want, asking the boys and then asking the girls, how many of you would want to be boys? Admittedly, most girls said they wanted to be boys, but you don't need to. What God has made you is beautiful, and we're going to be talking about that. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. In other words, how you express your sexual identity. Okay, darling, take over.
Now, I think you've all seen the doom. If we were with you physically, we would have taken out the doom. It's called doom, sometimes called motain, power guard, all those names, as you can see. And on this doom, the manufacturer actually put directions. And if we go to the next slide, it's like shake well before use. If you are dealing with flying insects, you spray directly at the insect to clear a room of flying insects, spray into the air about 10 seconds, keeping the doors closed. And so it gives you the instructions. Then it also has precautions. It says protect from sunlight, from fire, do not spray on food or utensils, store in a cool, dry place, and all that. And then it keeps going on. In case you have done something wrong, it tells you, okay, if it's the eye contact, the next slide, rinse the eyes with clean water. If it is skin
Mm,
contact, wash thoroughly with soap and water after use. If you've inhaled it, avoid prolonged or repeated inhalation or aerosol. In the event of excessive inhalation, remove the person to fresh air and then seek medical advice. So all the instructions have been given to us by the person who made this tool.
mm,
So
mm,
then when we turn to sexuality, we ask ourselves, so who made this person? What are his instructions? And how should we keep up with them? And what if we have made mistakes? What do we do? What if we have sprayed it into the eyes instead of spraying it into the air? What if we have um, inhaled it instead of spraying it out there? What do we do?
mm, mm. Oh, you continuing?
So, no, I was just saying you can go on. Sexuality was created by God. And when he created it, he said, very, very good. Don't go on, just go backwards. One more. Back. I'm still on.
Okay.
Move it back. Yeah. Sexuality
Oh,
was created by God and it was very, very good. That comes from Genesis 1, 27 to 28 and verse 31. So we have to, these are the instructions. Sexuality was created by God and he said it was very, very good. You read the verses if you want to. And then it adds that God made sexuality for pleasure and propagation. Many people are just having children, that's all. But it has the pleasure bit that comes from Songs, chapter 8, verse 5 to 8, and Proverbs 30, 18 to 19. Then a third one is that sex is exclusive to marriage. You leave your father and mother, you come join this person, and you are one flesh. That is the sexual bit. There's nowhere where it says, okay, have it before that. It's exclusive to marriage.
Or
And those
outside of it.
are there. Or outside of it. If you're married, you cannot have it outside. And those are the instructions. Now, the other things that are done outside of this gift that God has given us is, we call it immorality, sexual immorality. That is like the doom instruction. Something has gone wrong. So adultery is not in God's face. Fornication, homosexuality, you know what it is, or lesbianism, or LGBTQ, as people say. Bestiality is having sex with animals. Masturbation. Some people even, do you remember we used to have meetings with the young people? So they used to ask a lot about masturbation. Is it okay? Should we continue doing this? And we say, that's not God's plan. However much you want to promote it. In fact, one time we had a whole page in New Vision where doctors were signing and saying, it is okay, it is okay, it is okay. And we said, the world will tell you things are okay. But what does the manufacturer say? The manufacturer says it's not part of the plan.
We're gone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
then
these
you
are
have
what.
yeah.
Go on.
Sorry. No. So what she has been explaining there is God's plan. And we've got to understand that whatever the manufacturer does is not superly cosmetic. It's intended to show you what is good and what is not good. So when we talk about your sexuality or even sex, it is good. Very, very good. That one, nobody should ever deceive you that somehow it's bad. No, it's very good. But let's understand, he also warns us about the consequences, just like you saw with the doom can, that there are consequences that you're talking about. And so you must not be controlled by sex or by your sexuality. You've got to keep it in check, and we are coming to that. Sex is secondary to love. There are people who kind of put sex and love on equal footing. And they think that when we have sex, then we love one another. But when we don't have sex, then I think, this person doesn't love me. That is a distortion. That is a corruption of what the manufacturer intended, and that is God. Now, sometimes sex can be handled by running, running away. If you feel that the pressure is too much, then you have got to say, hey, I better get away from here. But it's designed to complete the intimacy between two people so that they can enjoy it together and they can live together happily. Okay? So
You
now,
remember Joseph, the story of Joseph?
mm,
Yeah, he ran away because that was not appropriate. This was his master's wife was
mm,
asking to sleep with him, not once, not twice, many, many times, until he said no. So when she forced him, he just ran away and left his coat. It got him into trouble. But sometimes you do have to run. When someone in your dormitory, in your, where you live, pushes themselves in and wants to have sex with you, to mishandle your sexuality, in other words, you need to be able. Sometimes you have to run.
okay. Now, she has been talking about these perversions of our sexuality, and you can see them. I don't think we need to belabor them. We are simply saying these are not the purpose for which God made you a sexual being. That's not the reason. They are going to leave you with the consequences. They are going to leave you with the guilt, as you see in First Timothy 1:19. So that is not the way that it should be, no matter what the world actually says. Okay? So, darling, go ahead.
So this is what we talk about when we discuss sexuality and the reasons why we do this. Remember, we are doing character building, so you may think, why do they even talk about these things? But there are a lot of people who have a very unhealthy understanding of love, intimacy, and sex. So we want you to develop a healthy understanding. Hmm? Some of you have grown up in homes where you've never seen anyone love anybody. They just beat them. The wife comes back and is beaten by the husband.
Mm,
Sometimes it's even the husband who is being beaten by the wife. So there's a lot of dysfunction in many families. So we need to talk about things as they should be so
mm,
that you learn. If you've never seen anything that is good, at least you learn.
mm,
Secondly, to gain healthy attitudes about yourself. There are so many people who have a very low self-esteem. They don't know who they are. They don't believe that they can be any better or any good, So it's important to have a healthy attitude. I am a person created by God. The sexuality is good. I'm not misusing it, and so on.
mm. Okay, I'll
And
continue.
then get an accurate an accurate information and correct the misinformation. There are so many things that are not correct
Mm,
that have been passed on, and we'll bring them up in the process. But there are things like um, if you don't have sex, you grow something, you grow some hormones,
mm,
so much inaccurate information. So we want to give you the correct and accurate information, and then also people get these sexual feelings, just like we talked up about. He said, how then do I deal with these sexual feelings? How do I manage them? Dealing that still with the inner man, that person who is inside there. You don't know how to deal with the mind, with the soul, and then get an understanding of the consequences of sexual activity. There are consequences of everything that you think about and
mm.
that you do in this area. Even if no one sees you, you still get some kind of.
Okay.
So, mm, so we do talk about um, body parts. I didn't put anything in there, but it's like we have internal and external organs, we have hormones, we have glands, we have all kinds of things, and you need to know how they work together. Okay.
Mm,
The female system has ovaries, has reproductive fallopian tubes, has a uterus, a vagina. How are they connected in this sexuality thing? They produce eggs, they support development. Then we have the male system, which have the testes, the penis, the prostate. They produce sperm. How do they work together? So I'm
mm,
not going to go into that because I'm sure you did all those kind of things in your biology. But for example, the female system, they produce eggs. The
mm,
egg comes down the fallopian tube and then goes into the uterus. If in the fallopian tubes it meets the sperm, for example, there will be a fertilized egg. The fertilized egg will come down into the uterus and develop into a fetus, develop into a child. And then the birth is given through the vagina. Now you may think that, oh, those are things we know, but for a 2-year-old, for example, they won't know all this information. But it's a system that is grown over the years. You have
mm,
the testes of the male system that produce sperm, they produce testosterone. I don't know how to say that word. And then you have the scrotum, you have the ducts, you have the glands, and that they release the sperm and so on. So there's a reproductive system. Then we have hormones, you know, hormones that help us to grow. They are called chemical messengers. They are produced by glands in the system and travel through the bloodstream to different tissues. Do you see how God has made all these things work out so well? Things are growing, things are happening. Some hormones come a bit later, some hormones, you are born with them, and they affect everything about you. So to me, that gives you a total picture of what sexuality is. And then for women, they have menstruation every month. And how does that happen? If you don't know, you need to find out. That's why these days we give talks to the primary school children and secondary school children together, because they need to know what is going on with the female, what's going on with the male. These people at some point are going to get married. So if you grow when you are ignorant, one lady recently, she's probably in her 70s now, was telling me that when she was 18, she asked her mother where babies come from. And her mother told her, oh, amabati, amabati. What are they? Corrugated iron sheets.
Iron sheet.
That, oh, they open them and throw the baby into the house. And she believed her. I said, at 18, you still believe that? And then eventually she came to find out that, oh, people get pregnant. So she came back and asked the mother, Mommy, how do people get pregnant? She said, oh, when you sit next to a man, the power from him comes into you. And she went back and believed that for the next 4 years. I'm thinking, well, we shouldn't be like that. We should really know the depths of what happens in our bodies. Okay, move on to the next.
Okay, so here is the nature of sex. Many of us, and I think it's a very good picture because many of us tend to learn a lot from the screen. Okay, here is a father saying to the son, I think it's time we had a talk about sex. And what does the young man say? What would you like to know? Now, people learn a lot from there, but may I also say that not everything that is in there is actually holistically teaching you what sexuality is all about. There are also a lot of distortions that come through that. Okay, so now we talk about the nature of sex. Sex is more than just a physical instinct or a biological attraction. We must not think that once the physical is satisfied or once the physical interconnects, that is all about sex. Sex itself pervades all life, and it involves in-depth intimacy and intense communication between two people, even in the absence of physical contact.
Because I
That
know, for example, when you have sex with somebody, it's not an experience you put aside and say, I had sex with that individual 10 years ago and I forgot all about it. You see, that's the communication we are talking about. The physical contact is not there. Maybe you separated 10 years ago, but something can come and clicks again and reminds you of that person, that physical time you had. So we do not play about with that physical thing and call it a toy, because it pervades life, pervades your life forever.
You remember the person, you remember the place, you remember what is there, and here you are with your wife or with your husband, and your mind keeps on going. That invisible person that we were talking about, and your mind takes a journey years earlier, and they are coming back, and these are not healthy things for your future. They are not healthy things if you misuse the gift of sexuality. Okay? So, because once there is sex between two people, there is actually a part of you that is exchanged with the other person. And the Bible itself, when it talks about sex, it actually says that there is a oneness. You're joined, you're bonded with one another. In fact, in Ephesians chapter 4, Paul goes on to say that he does not want to give the body that is already united with Christ now to be united with a prostitute. Because any person who is not your wife, it's like prostitution to another person. And premarital sex itself is outside the boundaries of a safe environment. And that's exactly what we've been talking about, that when you have it outside the commitment relationship called marriage, the protective relationship, then what is happening here is that you are in an unsafe environment. And this will destroy your intimacy and your communication. Okay?
True.
Uh-huh.
So then we look at the cement. This, sexuality, sex itself, the whole emotion of intercourse is supposed to leave a deep impression on the memory. And so the sensations, the emotions, the memory of the partner, the circumstances, you know, they're supposed to remain in your head forever. Why? Because that bonding is essential in marriage. Okay.
Mm.
We've been
Mm.
married for 41 years. We need a bonding that will keep us. People keep asking us, how can you stay in that marriage for that long? Well, this is one of the things that helps to keep that bonding. So it becomes the cement. You know how they mix cement, huh? And make sure that the cement is hard. That is what brings you together.
Mm. Okay.
Then we
Go
move
on.
on to why sexuality is so intense. Most of you are past adolescents, but I explain this so that you can know before you are married that sexuality is so intense because of so many other things. If you look at all the things that are happening to adolescents, for example, there are physiological changes, the person is searching for an affection, and those are we call them push factors. These are the push factors. They offer attraction and excitement, the psychological changes, the search for intimacy and affection, curiosity. I think you can see them in the picture. Demonstration of maturity, that now I'm mature, I can do things for myself. I get many clients who are adolescents, and this is what they are going through. They want to have boyfriends, they want to have all kinds of things, and they are being pushed by the hormones.
In fact, I
And so,
remember when I was, let me just chip in a little bit. When I was a teenager, my friends had girlfriends and they kept on coming. We can get you a girl. We can. So there is always this pressure where you just want to be like the others, to have a girl. I mean, I thank God that I was an extremely shy person, so I couldn't manage these things. But there is a lot of pressure that you demonstrate that you are a man, you demonstrate that you are a woman. Okay? Please continue.
and then there are barriers also that help
Mm.
alongside here. And these include family. If you have a very strong family that is looking out for you, refuses you to go to the bar, refuses you to walk out with boys anyhow, come in anytime, drink anytime. Church is another good barrier. So the green part is the barrier. And then some cultural context can be push factors or can be barriers. The culture does not allow you to work with to be with anybody. Although, for example, in Bugisu, for example, there's that whole thing of pushing you at age 16, 18
Mm.
to in the culture. Media is another push. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it is not helpful. Yeah,
Mm.
into the sexual activity. So there are barriers, there are also stimulants. The media, for example, if you watch porn, I remember one person told me that at 6 years, their father started giving him magazines of porn. Hmm? And he said his father passed them down when he was 6. He's now passing them down to his son. So the
Mm.
guy is about 30 now, and he was confused. He said, my head is so filled with pornographic things. I don't know what to do with it. It is too much. It's pushing me. Okay.
Mm.
So porn, adverts, the circumcision things, school, just like the Reverend said, people are pushing you to get a boyfriend and do many things with them. So there's need for joint effort everywhere so that we can stop the sexual activity that can happen in our lifetime. You can jump
Okay.
the next slide because it's what I've been using to
Oh,
explain.
okay. So I move on. Okay. So then you
So there
have
are
the.
also,
Mhm.
go on.
Okay. There are all sorts of
So
myths,
just
and
a
I
minute, let
remember.
me address this person that I want to be like that father. No, please, Anthony, we do not want you to be like that father. Do not pass down any pornographic things. It is ruins a child's life forever. This guy is 30. He's struggling with what his father showed him at 6 years. So we want to limit and stop children from watching pornographic or blue movies, as you call them. Yeah.
I
So
think let's understand that whatever you put in the brain, it's like you're banking it for later. And so if we understand that, whatever you put in the mind of a child, you are essentially preparing that child either for good or for ill. Now, there are questions like, will sex discussions increase promiscuity and sexual experimentation? Sometimes people even ask us the question, when do I start talking about to the child about their sexuality? You have got to understand that there is a level of knowledge, a level of understanding that is appropriate for a particular age. So don't just push, 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 and so on. But you must not also, and I think she has addressed it, Dr. Ruth, she has addressed it, be careful not to give misinformation. Any misinformation, I mean, like that lady at 70 who was being told that nonsense in her earlier years, that is wrong. You don't have to give all the information, but you must not also give misinformation. Misinformation is unhelpful. Okay, do I move on?
yes.
Mhm.
Now, these are some of the false assumptions about sexuality. I think we mentioned a few of them. We'll just read, and I think you've probably had them. If you don't have sex, you have a backache and menstrual pains. So, someone actually came and told me, oh, they've told me that these menstrual pains can only go away if I have sex. And I said, well, I don't think that is true. That is not true. It does
Mm.
not go away just because you have had sex. Young people want sex more than they want love. Whether
Mm.
you like it or not, you will have sex. So it's unrealistic to expect them to wait. Oh,
And you know,
that is not
there are
realistic at all.
parents, there are many people that believe that kind of thing, but it's absolutely false that young people want sex. In fact, there was a research that was done that indicated they want the relationship with their family much more than they want sex. So some of them, in fact, resort to sex simply because they are not getting the care and love that they need. So they think that if they have sex, then they will feel loved. They will be loved.
Imagine when
So,
they do that, when
yeah.
they have sex and think it is love, they get so disappointed and it becomes worse.
Mm.
But there's another one, which is not true either. Everyone is doing it anyway. My dear, don't think that because you are doing it, everybody around you is also doing it.
And we keep on saying you are not everyone anyway.
Hmm.
And I can assure you there are many, many people who still believe that virginity is a beautiful thing and that you enter marriage as a virgin. And that is very special. So
So if
virginity
you
is
were
not
to
old-fashioned.
if you
Yeah.
were to do a count of how many of us are still virgins, I'm sure you'll find many. So
I,
don't be overtaken by these myths, these assumptions.
I remember we used to ask young people, how many of you would want to marry a virgin? And this was a big, big conference. You're talking of thousands of young people. And those who want to marry a virgin would put up their hand. Now, that desire to marry a virgin should now be turned around to say, I want to be the kind of person that others will desire to marry. That when I say I'm a virgin, they feel proud. You are mine, and I am the first with you. Okay. Another one is the media tells youth the truth about their sexuality. I think she has already addressed this, saying the media is both
Yes.
a push factor as well as a hindrance. So we
Because
can look.
much of what you see
Mm,
on media is played out. You watch movies, people rehearse that thing like a year to get it right. And
yeah.
when it comes on screen, you take it literally thinking that it is true. Oh, these people, they saw each other, fell in love, they're in bed now, let me do the same. So do not accept any of those things.
And then you
Sex.
hear sex between consenting, you underline that word consenting persons is
Mm,
nobody else's business. Well, my friend, as long as it is outside God's purpose, your consent is not what makes a difference. You are still going to have the same consequences that we are talking about. It is all wrong, and it's going to affect others anyway. Paul actually speaks in First Thessalonians chapter 4, where he talks about hurting each other. And if you read that passage carefully from verse 3 to 8, he's saying that if you have sex outside marriage, whether it is with a married person or both of you are unmarried, then what is happening is that the person who will eventually marry you or marry the other person is no longer getting a virgin, and therefore they are affected. They are also affected. You may even
mm.
pass on some of the other consequences that we are going to be talking about. There are things that will happen. And so it's everybody's business. Okay? Then safe sex is really safe. Mhm. And I
Yes,
think
it
this
is.
is just use a condom. This has been said over and over again. And we
Mm.
can say safe sex is no sex before marriage. Keep yourself pure, keep yourself for the person that you'll marry.
These days I deal a lot with HIV because of the work that I do. And of course, we say use the condom correctly and all that. But sometimes I give examples of just for you to know that yes, you may say, oh, I'm safe because I have a condom. But I want you to imagine you are thinking of a rubber tube, hmm? A rubber thing that is protecting you from what? From so many things. Okay, but does it work really all the time? Because if they say that if you, they say it is it 65%, 65% um viable? It's like
Okay. Yeah.
this is how I explain it. If you have sex 100 times, 67 of those you will not get pregnant. We are talking about pregnancy.
Mm,
So the other part left, you can easily get pregnant because it is not safe. So I would not advise you,
mm,
unless you are really foolish, to use a condom when you are still not married. Anyway, I could go on and on. I usually give examples and people, how it all works, but it's not safe. It's not safe sex. It's not safe.
yeah.
The
And then
big
the next one, youth do not need parental involvement in sexual decisions. That is again a false assumption. And it is researched and it shows the majority of children prefer to hear anything about their sexuality from their own parents. What sometimes brings problems is when the parental relationship is not there, then parental involvement becomes complicated. But it's very important to receive this information from parents. And the last one, it's not possible to wait. That's one of the
Mm.
funniest ones because
Mhm.
it's like saying we are like dogs on heat or bulls on heat and
Mm.
cows on heat and so forth. And it's not
Mm.
true. God created us, as we will show you. God created us with the ability to say, I will not. I will not, even when I feel the urge is overwhelming.
And
Okay?
we keep saying that we've never had anyone dying because they waited. Have you ever had anyone say, "Oh, she was 65 years old and she died because she didn't have sex"? It has never happened.
Mm,
So you can wait and you will not die, and
mm,
you'll be safer, the safest actually as a virgin. And someone is asking whether men can also be virgins. I said, yeah, we are talking
mm.
about both male and female. The word is used for both. If you've never had sex with anybody, you are a virgin, and you are not going to die tomorrow because you are a virgin. You can wait. It is possible to wait.
And
We
I,
wait.
and I, yeah. I think that person who is asking, there is, of course, another myth there, some false assumption that it's okay for men. And usually it is one of those things where people think that after all, it's the woman's hymen that is going to be broken. So it doesn't matter then what the man does. That is a false assumption. It's a myth. It's not right. Both of us are affected by our sexuality, and both of us are affected by having sex. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, some
Challenge.
of the challenges that are in today's world, there's a lot of media influence and everything is sexualized. From buying a car, Benz, some girl is standing on it who is half naked. We are buying a car, even buying Coca-Cola, So there's a lot that is happening in the world today. And then there are those who are confused, the identity. Who am I? Maybe I'm lesbian, I'm gay, it's so much bestiality, TQ
Mm,
plus plus. There are so many pluses. So people are confused.
mm, mm.
And then there
Uh,
is what we call early exposure to sexual sins. People are exposed as early as 1, 2 years. We have maids that we live with our children, and they're showing them very, very explicit movies. And this
mm,
affects the mind, the inner person, that invisible person inside. Then we have people buying, they call it buying for right and freedom for pleasure. It is my body. Let me do what I want with it. If I want to have sex as many times,
mm.
what is it to you? How do you want? So people stand up, and if I don't like this baby, I'm going to abort the baby. So the rights and freedom, instead of being responsible and making responsible choices.
And I think
Those
we
are
need to say that this whole thing about rights is overstated. Everything is becoming a right. The original right, by the way, even by the United Nations, did not include all this nonsense that has come in. It was intended for it is your right as you were created. In other words, based, and those were the times when people were still believing in God. And so your created nature is what decided your rights. And in a sense, for the Christian, of course, it would be easier for us to understand. We have already talked about how God created us. We have already talked about the purpose for which He created us. And when I'm within that purpose, then I can talk about the freedom, I can talk about the right. Otherwise, it becomes slavery. Okay. Um, you want to go on then?
the choice, That's the good part. You have a choice to go, you have a choice to say no. We are all responsible for what we choose to do. Some time back, I was talking to a gentleman who was struggling with sexuality. He had had so many sexual partners. We call it sexual addiction. So sometimes he had first made it a choice, but now the addiction had taken over. He was just going out with anybody that he finds, and it had become a huge, big problem. So when you choose the wrong thing at the beginning, you
Mm,
get many consequences.
mm.
But your
Uh,
behavior is supposed to be
yeah.
purposeful.
Yeah, and we need to really emphasize that each one of us was created with the ability to choose,
Mm.
and that choice is your individual responsibility. Nobody else should be choosing for you. You should choose what is right, because whether you like it or not, at some point or other, you are going to be affected. Okay, do I move on?
You can move on. What are the consequences now? Some people are like, okay, physical, I'll get pregnant, I'll take the pregnancy out, I'll get STDs, I will work on it, I'll get HIV, I will get medication, I'll abort. So physical sometimes is looked at, I don't even want to think about physical. I can easily work through that. But those are the consequences sometimes that come out of the sexual relationship with when you are not yet married.
And once you get involved in abortion, then on top of you doing the wrong thing, then you also become a murderer. So let's understand that. So anyway, there are those consequences. Then there are spiritual ones. You break God's law. Yeah, but many times we talk about breaking God's law. Let's understand that the law will remain, you will be the one broken. The law is not going to change. It's like saying you're going to break the law of gravity. Yeah, you try to break it, but the law will remain, and you are the one who will be broken if you try to jump from a high building. So, this estrangement from God is something that we need to seriously understand, that you can never, whatever we said God stipulated, is going to remain, whether you like it or not. You break it, but it will remain, and it's you who is going to suffer for it. It kills our trust for God and our trust in other relationships. It really creates a problem. And even the two people who have misused their sexuality, they themselves, I mean, we've seen cases of young people who have misused it. They've had premarital sex, and after that, they don't like each other. In fact, a story is told in 2 Samuel chapter 13. If you have an opportunity, you can look there for yourself, of a man called Amnon who decided, he wanted to have sex with his half sister, and then forced her into rape. And after that, what happened? He hated her. So it really kills relationships badly. Then there is the judgment. You are answerable to God for your moral choices, whether you like it or not. Your moral choices, you will be judged whichever way you look. And then lastly, it detracts from God's purpose. And that particular passage talks about David and what he did. It detracts. And as a matter of fact, if I may just expand on that a little bit, when David committed the sin of adultery with another man's wife and ended up even killing, he suffered the consequences affected the entire family. So be very careful. You can't run away with it. Emotional effects, darling?
Then we have this one, especially what I deal with when I'm in counseling. Emotional effects, people never think about this. You have a damaged self-esteem, having sex before marriage, having sex with somebody you never meet again. I'm sure you know all these things that are happening now in the world. You have friends for benefit. You say you want to have sex with somebody, just call up someone and they come, and you don't get attached to them. It's like, how do you feel after that? You lose your self-esteem. There are feelings of insecurity, inadequacy, inferiority, and rejecting of yourself. Sometimes you even see yourself as a sex object, that I'm just here to provide sex for people. Think of the guilt. Maybe I'll be found out. Sometimes it's anger. You have sex with this person, you never see them again. They call you stupid, they give you bad names. There's anger, you are rejected, resentment, depression, blame game. It wasn't me, it was him. Self-rejection, insecurity, lack of self-confidence. And then you also undermine marriage, because honestly, I saw someone talking about it in the comments, that for you are keeping yourself pure, the other person is out there doing so many things. But basically, when you marry them, there's something that doesn't add up. So it's just important not to undermine marriage. And then having sex before you are married makes you a second. I don't think I want to be a second. I want to be a first, not a second. May God help you as you make those choices.
I think if I may just add on that we need to understand that we are very special in God's eyes. He never made any of us to be a second. He made us to be very special. So, I mean, when we talk about, we call it here a second, we are really talking about like second-hand clothes. You are so precious. You're not supposed to be a second-hand cloth. And that's the point. So don't submit to premarital sex. Now, I see our time is bad. I know this is a lot. What do you think, darling? Possibly Tawera can advise us because we are clocking the top of the hour in a minute.
Okay, Professor Michael Kawea, your thoughts on this?
Yes. We've been going for an hour. The longer we listen, the more I want to listen to more and more. My suggestion is, if it were possible, we could have part two, and
Okay.
in that part two, which is
Uh-huh.
next week, then we
Uh-huh.
can also entertain some questions. Because
Okay.
that is really overflowing with comments and questions.
Yes.
And so my suggestion is that we do part two, and also that during that part two, then I'm sure we shall have even bigger audience, and then we shall have even more questions. So let's do that. I think we'd call it a day.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is the right place to break. Thank you so much for your guidance. It's the right place to break. And I just want to leave this in people's minds, though, that we've talked about the physical, the spiritual, the emotional effects, but just think of it as you look at the world. If you were given to create a scrapbook out of the newspapers, that is, newspaper cuttings, and just collect them, and every day you read the newspapers or you read a magazine or you read whatever, and you pick out those stories of disharmony.
Excuse me, Reverend.
Can you please wait?
Okay.
And you then are able to hear to read about how much chaos is brought into this world by the misuse of our sexuality. That is essentially the thought that I wanted to leave in your minds, to say to you, do not become a contributor to the mess, but rather become a solution. So thank you very much. I think I'll end
I
there.
think before you end, we don't want to leave you hanging. And when we talk about it next week, it is possible to harness your sexuality. It's possible to control. It's not something that cannot be controlled. And if you have messed up, it's also possible to be restored. So that you don't go away thinking, oh, for me, they are talking about other people. But it's possible for you to be brought back into where you're supposed to go. And your beliefs, to try to think about, what have I been believing? Because what we are trying to do is to bring you back to where a healthy behaviors towards sexuality, what we're supposed to do, what is love, sex, and relationships. How are they supposed to how are we supposed to handle them, so that you are able to do something about it. Okay. Don't go away thinking, oh, this is the end of me. I have messed up and things are not good. There is still hope for you. And you have our numbers, and you can also call us to ask us if there's anything that you really want to know that we have not answered. I've seen a number of questions in the chat.
I think Paul
ask
Tawera has
for
been
next week.
picking them.
For next week, we can always give you some, maybe 30 minutes of just putting questions on the chat so that we can answer them. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, our lovely facilitators. It's been it's been a beautiful session, and I will not manage to read what is in the chat today because there is a lot. And yes, I picked out a number of questions, but since we're going to continue next week, allow me to just maybe read one or two for you, our facilitators. Maybe you can address these ones before we go. And maybe the first one, somebody asked that, what if we were defiled? What do we do? I think this is in regards to the thought that we're learning now that we're supposed to abstain until we are married. So what happens if one was defiled, what do they do?
Okay, let me answer that one. I worked with an organization called Hope After Rape. So I was dealing with rape and defilement for a couple of years. And when somebody has been raped or defiled, sometimes they keep quiet and they don't talk about it until maybe they get into a place where they want to marry. And so I would encourage anybody who has gone through defilement or rape to talk about it and get that counseling and get the help to be able to be pulled out of that, because it's like a trauma mark. Your body has been defiled by someone, and sometimes people don't know how to deal with it. So some people say, well, I've been defiled, I can go and have sex with anybody that I want because my body's already been defiled, and they go that direction. Others become so scared. They're like, I don't want to see any man. I don't want to even work with any man. They get so annoyed. So it's just important to get the help. Talk to someone. That's what we do in counseling. We talk to you and help you work through it and find forgiveness in your heart, of course, and then also see how to go forward from there.
All right, thank you, Canon Dr. Ruth. And then also somebody is asking, is it right for me to have a girlfriend at campus? I think that will be the last question I asked, and then the rest I will forward them to your email or WhatsApp, and then maybe you can discuss some of them since we're still having part 2 next week of the same topic.
It's very, very natural to desire to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And I think, to be brief, maybe we can pick this up later, but to be brief, personally, I would say, why do you want one? Remember, we even talked about peer pressure, where everyone makes you feel like you are not normal. You are not fulfilled simply because. Now, is that the reason why you want a girlfriend? I met my wife, by the way, when I was doing my PhD. When I was doing my PhD, I still had 2 years to finish. That's when I met her. And it's okay. It's okay.
I was in my second year at campus.
At university. So yes. Do not rush simply because you remember the push factors that were being talked about? Don't get pushed into a relationship simply because you see everybody has a boyfriend, has a girlfriend. Ask yourself, why do I need one? What are we going to be doing together? Ask yourself some serious questions. Let there be purpose. Let there be a goal. As long as you have not answered those in a good way, then our advice would normally be, try to be friends with all the ladies around. Maybe one of them eventually becomes your girlfriend. Maybe one of them becomes your boyfriend. But allow yourself that social connection, which is healthy for you. Okay, I think I'll stop there.
All right,
yes.
Thank you so much.
And also ask yourself,
yeah.
If I have a girlfriend and maybe it's even, I want to marry them, is it sustainable for the next, we are in first year, we are all looking at getting married in the next 7 years. Is it sustainable? Sometimes we fall into problems because we spend a long time dating, a long time looking for, for opportunity to sleep with somebody instead of looking for opportunity to marry them eventually. So I think we will talk about that also when we start. Mr. Katambula is put his hand up very high. I don't know if you want to pick him up.
Okay. Maybe also before he comes in, allow me to say that, so because of the nature of these sessions, we're a lot, we will really appreciate you put your questions in the chat because we can't have everyone raise their hand and everyone ask a question. So I'll just make an exception for this one because I haven't seen your question in the chat, but going forward, let's have everybody, if you have a concern or if you feel it's something you can't write in the chat for everyone to see, you can direct it to directly the facilitators or myself or Prof. so that we don't have everyone have to speak. Okay, Mr. Katambla, you can come in. Mr. Simon?
I think he put it up by mistake. I think we can leave him.
Okay. Okay, otherwise, thank you, our dear facilitators. It's been a beautiful, and I love the fact that we had both feminine and male touch to this topic, and it made it very beautiful. So I kept on reading in the chat, and the chat has been, well, amazing. Too many questions, too many thoughts, too many everything. And we look forward to next week's session. Is he on?
Hello.
I'm hearing somebody who's...
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I'm Katambla Simon. My iPhone had some problem with sensitivity on the screen.
Yes, please go on.
Yeah, my question is, there's a text in Romans chapter 7 where Paul is saying that I know the good, but I cannot do the good that I know. I end up doing the bad that I don't want. Now I want to ask a question there. Is there a circumstance where adultery or fornication or harlotry is a demon? Are there people carrying demons of harlotry?
Okay, thank you for that question, Mr. Katambla. And let me say that, well, it was kind of outside our talk to start talking about demonic possession. But it is indeed true that demonic possessions can happen because of misused sexuality. However, these statements have to be made very, very carefully. It does not mean that every misuse of your sexuality ends up into demon possession. Now, beyond that, it would be too much to start talking about at this point. But I want also to point out to you the very last verse in that chapter 7. It's a very beautiful chapter where Paul bears his heart about the ability for us to live right. And he's really encouraging us to understand that without Christ we can't make it. And in the very last verse, he ends up by saying, but thanks be to God. So in other words, that we do have the triumph, we do have the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay? Since time is far gone, I can't go further than that, but we don't want now to start meandering into demons. And as far as demons are concerned, they do exist, they do possess people, but thanks be to God for Jesus Christ, that actually all these can be overcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And I think, yes, like you said, our time is really, really fast spent. But thank you so much for today's sharing and the time. And right about now, allow me to call upon Professor Michael Kauya to help us close today's session.
Wow, there's a lot which has been told in today's session, but it just shows that we're all interested in being better and better and better. We have also been informed and told that sexuality was ordained by God and that it's only Him who has the answer. The answer is in His word on how we should conduct ourselves with regard to sex. And one thing is very simple, that it should be within the context of marriage and not outside marriage. And things which that have lots of consequences, and these remain. We've been with impression on your mind. There is replay for the whole of your life. Let's pray. Father, I want to thank you that you taught us all these deep things about sexuality. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Yes, you want to be able to have the way you designed it. And thank you. Thank you for the things we've learned today. Lord, help us to know it's good. It has boundaries within which it can be, it should be done. And when it we want to pray, Lord, that there are also those unanswered questions that you yourself, your Holy Spirit, will answer those. Should there be anyone among us, Lord, here who, because of the way they have been misusing this gift of sex, Lord, we pray that they will fast and come to a knowledge of you and of your Son Jesus Christ and start a new life. Thank you that there is no going too far, that how far we have gone, we can still come back to you in repentance. So bless the Senyonyis for blessing us, and tonight as we sleep, give us a peaceful sleep until we meet again next Wednesday and listen once again to this very important topic. We pray all this for the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.